Buongiorno and welcome to my way of thinking, the guest favourite podcast. Every week when I interview my brilliant guests, I always ask them one question, and that is their favourite. And it can be a book or a film. I always ask them anything as long as it's accessible. And in this episode, I'll be reviewing those favourites every week. It can be from any episode, but one that I finally got round to reading or watching. As you all know, I'm a film buff, so I've watched most of the films that people tell me about. But I thought today, which would be a really good starting point, would be the old classic Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Now, this is an absolute corker of a book. Read this many years ago, and I reread it since a few guests talked about it. And I thought I'd give you a quick lowdown on what it is about, because it is a great book if you haven't read it, and also give you a bit of a review on it. Now, first of all, I thought I'd just tell you the blurb, which I can just reel off from good old the back of the book or Amazon. You can buy this book basically anywhere. So let's just give you a little bit of background. In 1962, fresh out of business school, Phil Knight borrowed $50 from his father and created a company with a simple mission: import high-quality, low-cost athletic shoes from Japan. Selling the shoes from the boot of his Plymouth, Knight grossed $8,000 in his first year, $8,000. Knight's annual sales top $30 billion now. Probably more even now. In an age of startups, Nike is the knee plus ultra of all startups, and the swoosh has become revolutionary, globe-spanning icon. One of the most ubiquitous and recognised symbols in the world today. Big words for today. Ooh. But Knight, the man behind the swoosh, has always remained a mystery. And in this book, he actually tells his story for the first time. He's candid, humble, wry, gutsy. And he begins with the crossroads moment when at 24, he decided to start his own business. He details the many risks and daunting setbacks that stood between him and his dream. It's a memoir rich with insight, humour and hard-won wisdom. And the book is also studied with lessons about building something from scratch, overcoming and ultimately leaving your mark on the world. And I totally agree with that. That's Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Now, for me, the book is very well written. I read it quite a few years ago. I don't know when it was brought out. I should know. It's not very good, is it? But it is a fascinating story from the very beginning to the end. It's one of these books that you can just pick up, read very quickly. It's written, like I say, very well, very succinct and smartly to keep the reader, engaged. It's a type of biography that I like because it's written by the man himself. We get a lot of ghostwriters now and stuff written that's not actually by the actual man himself, but this is. So I found that was quite fascinating. He's a fascinating character as well. One thing I did pick up on this is that a lot of the characters in it, they're not superhuman at all. All they are is just human beings really working hard, persevering, and giving it absolutely everything. And Phil Knight's tenacity just shines through on every page. So like I say, it's invaluable for people just wanting to read an interesting book, but also it's invaluable for people wanting to start a business, because there's some great life lessons in there and gives you a bit of an idea of how he made such a huge brand. So it is a story that everyone can identify with. Obviously, we're not all going to come up with Nike, but you can get some brilliant little bits of tidbits of wisdom in there. When it gets tough, he talks about how he got through it, and it will inspire you. It's one of those books where you read it. I remember reading Richard Branson's, and it does inspire you. And if you're at that crossroads where you're a bit unsure about things, read this and you're like, yeah, you run outside like, right then, I'm going to start the next Nike. Lots of lovely little quotes in there as well. I remember one, you're remembered by the rules, for the rules you break, he says. Lovely little tidbits like that. And the chapters are based on every year from when the company was founded to 62 to when it became established to 1980. It'd be interesting to see if he ever does one that goes after the made. I've not checked, but that would be interesting to see, bring it up to the present day. But it's an emotional ride as well. There's some great emotional parts in it as well. and definitely worth a look. So that is my in-depth review. Sorry if it weren't perfect. It's just me talking about a book that is a cracker, and it's one of those just everyone should have on the bookshelf and read. You can get, like I say, you can pick it up pretty much everywhere. You can get used copies on eBay dirt cheap for like £4, or you can go on Amazon and get a brand new one. But get it on your bookshelf. It's worth doing, definitely. Now, that's it. Massive thanks again today for listening or watching. If you're on Facebook, make sure you follow the podcast itself, because coming over the next month, there are some more extraordinary interviews coming up. Maybe I can get Phil Knight on. I'll need to be doing really well. You never know. Nothing's impossible. Now, the podcast streams on all the usual platforms, iTunes, Spotify, so please leave a rating on there and subscribe. And to keep up to date with Facebook is My Way of Thinking Podcast. Instagram is MWOT Podcast. I remember I always put this podcast along with the main podcast. The guest's favorite podcast will all be on YouTube, so you can watch it or you can listen it now in full HD. And you can see all my grey and my beard. And remember, if you want me to get a guest on, tell me who it is, or you want to ask me a question, you can email me whatpodcast@aol.com. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to do a lot more of these because I really enjoy reading these books and watching the films, especially if I haven't watched a film for a while and then someone says, oh, this film, I'll rewatch it and I'll give you reviews and take what you want from it. But trust me, if you hear me saying it's definitely worth putting on your bookshelf, then get it on there. Okay, God bless. Take care. Speak soon.